everyone, been gone for a minute, I know, but I'm back here. I'm going to do some ELF power rankings. I've done 2 articles on this on AFI, so go read those if you haven't already. But I'm going to be looking at the first one and just kind of give it a bit more of an insight into my thought process and some players that I like and kind of maybe some problems that the team might come into in the 2024 season. So, last place, the Enthroners. Again, this is pretty common with all my videos. I say at the start a lot of them. I am British and don't speak a second language, so my pronunciation on some of these names are going to be awful. So I do apologise. It's not meant to be, personal. It's just, hard. So, Enthroners, the homegrown talent always going to be an issue. They don't really have much going on in terms of homegrown talent anywhere. There's a couple guys coming through, but quite a lot of the Hungarian talents, like Fedor in Vienna, and quite a lot of the players in the Vienna Vikings, actually, in their youth system, have Austrian passports, or they were come through the Austrian system, so they don't count as Hungarian players, which is a massive, massive issue that they need to invest into. So the future in the Enthroners has to be just youth. But they do have a few notable signings. Obviously, the big one recently, before I wrote this, was Nathaniel Robitaille. Huge signing. Huge signing. He's a speedster. He's going to really, really open that offense and just give something to watch for this team. Jabari Regan's back. He was good last season. Really underrated defensive veteran, as I can highlight down here. And the receiver, Samuel from Holland, could be a Rookie of the Year guy. He's going to have the European corner, assumedly so, on him, with Robitaille taking up the American. So he could see a lot more production. We see that all the time, where the American takes the American and the European is allowed to show a lot more. Look at Flores last season on Milan, right? They had Jean taking up the American. It freed him a lot, and he then became Rookie of the Year. You can kind of see that happening. He's speedy. He could have went to college in America, didn't end up coming through, which is a shame. But, he's definitely one to watch. Teddy Adelaide Jr. is another one of their import players. I'm a little bit confused by this one, to be honest. I don't really see the value of a defensive tackle of his caliber. He's good, don't get me wrong, but I don't think that he would be worth an E-spot. If he was on a French team, I wouldn't bat an eyelid. If he was on the Musketeers. If he was on a GFL team, I wouldn't bat an eyelid, because that's where he came from. And he also came from the Spanish league as well, Catalan. But as an E-import, I just have my doubts. It's just, he's a little bit slow on the first step. He doesn't have the crazy explosiveness. And he has some poor pad level. And he has kind of a low bend in his knees for a D-tackle that is, very important. He is strong and he does have a high motor. But I see him more as like a run-stopping player where he doesn't have much, if any, pass rush value. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But if you're going to be spending one of your 6 imports, you kind of need them to be more effective overall, I think. That's just my opinion. Jack Mangle, the quarterback, is another reason why he's a little lower on this list. Negative touchdowns to interceptions thrown his senior year in college is a concern from Concord. He's 6'2", 220, he's 24, so he is young. He definitely has potential to be something. Look at Matty Isasio in Panthers. I thought he was going to be very poor, and he wasn't. He really, really proved me wrong. So I'm hoping the same with Jack Mangle. He has a decent arm. There's difference in arms, right? So it's long distance, how far can you throw it? But there's also that, some people call it fuck you arm. Just getting it through players' hands. And I think he has the potential for that. So I think he could, if he can zip it into Robitaille and Samuel, just really, really quick screens and slants and stuff like that, he could be really, really, really good. But he does have high turnover rate. His footwork's a little bit kind of stonish in the pocket. So he definitely has some stuff to go through when he gets into Hungary, but he has certainly got potential. I'm unsure if it'll work out. They got Nielsen, Hjalmar Nielsen from Potsdam Rolls. Another good signing. I actually do like this one quite a bit. He's aggressive on the ball. He high points well. He's going to cause turnovers for that defense. Some of his cuts are a little bit soft though. He does have a lot of wasted movement. Like he'll backpedal, he'll move one way or the other while the play's, coming to him, and he kind of starts steps. So I'd like to see him come down a little bit faster, a little bit more aggressive on his trigger. But another player who's young, they've got a lot of young players. Nielsen's 24, Mangel's 24, Teddy's 26, Samuel's 22, Jabari Regan's coming at 30, but he's a veteran and holds Hungarian citizenship, so it's a lot easier for him to come in. Robitaille's a little bit older, but he's still a speedster, so. And then coming on to the next one, Ben Dixon, UK offensive lineman coming from the Dragons. Last year was really underrated. I thought the Dragons offensive line, I wrote about them, were solid. Like, they weren't outstanding, but they were decent. And Ben Dixon was a part of that, and I think he kind of went under the radar. They had Connor Bolton last year. They've got Ben Dixon. I kind of see them as, I think Bolton's a little bit better than Dixon, but Dixon is a good player. He's got a good get off, strong elbows, high motor, but just kind of worry about his redirects. Like, he has a very European sense of blocking. Like, he'll hit someone, and then he'll shed it, and then you either pancake or he won't look for a secondary block. That's kind of what I picked up from the film. Punch separation as well is sometimes a little bit, not lackluster, but not elite level. And they do have a lot of Hungarian talent to build through, so I'll have to kind of give some of them a chance. It's hard to find film in some of the Hungarian guys because, you know, it's the Hungarian league. It's not exactly a very public league, but the Enthroned's coming at 17. Kind of was expected, but, you know, sometimes that's just, someone's got to be last, right? Which is a shame. Moving up through Barcelona Dragons, you know, as I say here, unanimously lost about one franchises between Spain to sign the best homegrown talent. Yeah, I mean, they've lost a lot of the best Spanish players to Madrid. We just filter out my list here so I can have a look at their roster. If you are interested in looking at my rosters, I'll link to my Ko-fi down below as well, so you can see I have all the team signings, I've graded them, I have all the links to their film and their socials, and I also have position stuff as well for different players in Europe. But Barcelona, new head coach, he signed his son as well, who actually really do like his son's ability in this team. I think he does have some all-star potential. That's Dominic Shelton. He is a little bit undersized. I do think he starts at most, if not all teams, though. His average ball skills, in my opinion. He's aggressive on the ball. He comes down hard. He's aggressive. He's physical with his hands. And I think being with his dad is, you know, it's great. He's a coach's son. He gets to play with his dad in Europe, so can't really complain about that. He spent last season in Italy with the Stainless Steel Warriors, but, you know, mixed season, they weren't a very good team, but I don't think he was necessarily the issue for them. Imoni Donatelli, again, if I pronounce these names incorrect, I know he's American, but he's come from Seattle Sea Dragons, and I think that he could be something. Rapid. Absolutely rapid. Super quick, former track guy in high school. Held some state championships as an athlete in track and field. He does lack a bit of a diverse route tree. Some of his routes are a little bit soft. You know, his short routes are all right, but sometimes with his deep and intermediate routes, he can kind of get a little bit lackadaisical with it. But if he gets the ball in his hands and he's in open space, he's gone. Speaking of who's going to get him the ball, Levy Lewis, one of the most recent developments in the league, was put out just after I put out this article, which is a shame, but he is looking excellent. You know, I think he's one of my favourite players who's like new to the league. Obviously, there's going to be hundreds that are new to the league, but he is certainly one of them. Former Louisville quarterback. Good arm, nice touch on the ball. He's pretty mobile as a quarterback. Footwork can be a little bit stiff when he's in the pocket. And I would like to see his short game a little bit more. You know, sometimes he lacks a little bit of that. Short and intermediate game is a little bit underdeveloped in a way. But spent some time with Saskatchewan as well. Spent some time with Seattle Seahawks. He obviously has what it takes. My critique is two things. His size. He's not a massive guy. He's about 5'10", 185. So he's a smaller side of a quarterback. Kind of the Russell Wilson-esque. I think that's probably why he went to the Seahawks for a month. And then he's had a while out. He hasn't really played much the last few years. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes back from that with a few weapons around him, especially speed. Speed seems to be a thing with this team. You know, Jordan Pagani's very quick. You got his brother Cesar. Mamadou as well is a really young defensive end that I really like. And then speaking of defensive ends, you got Jack Jackson, who's come in, who's a veteran of the European League football. He has lacked some production, but he's also been on bad teams, which is unfortunate for him because he gets all of the attention. He's not in that top echelon of pass rushers in Europe, but he's certainly able to do it. I think he's a solid signing. they've kind of went heavy on the D-line and heavy with the UK players. So I've had a lot of people message me, oh, what do you think of this guy? What do you think of this guy? And then you got defensive tackle from Kiel, another British guy, Munashay, formerly of the Bucks League as well, which he's well known. I'm, again, the same with Ted Adelaide. I'm not too sure. Again, if it was a UK team, I wouldn't think anything of it. But he's super high power level. Super high power level. His pop on the initial contact isn't great. And his get off itself is super inconsistent. And has limited pass rush moves and even rush moves. He has really strong hands if he gets a grip hold of you. And he could definitely, he can affect anchors really, really well at the offensive line. But I just don't know the value that he's going to bring. I don't think he's an elite defensive tackle, in my opinion. But I guess we'll see. It's kind of the same thing that happens with Stephen McCluskey, the tight end fullback they've signed from the Unicorns. I just have questions. He didn't produce a crazy amount in college. He went to a D2 school as a tight end. He didn't produce very much for the Unicorns in his one season there, and then he goes to ELF. I would have liked to see him have more of a role in a GFL team before he made the step up. As a tight end, he is 6'2", 235, so he's not got huge size. He has had a few injuries. He was a former quarterback. He is versatile. Of course, he can play a tight end fullback. He can play as a receiver as well. And he is a super good blocker, to be fair to him. He is a good blocker. So I think the idea for him will probably have him play as a tight end to stretch out, and then he'll be the lead blocker for people like Imari. So, we'll see. He kind of runs a little bit awkwardly as a receiver, so his routes aren't spectacular. But again, I'm open to be proven wrong with this one. Elvis Nunez returns as center. One of the only players is returning to that offensive line as the Spanish player. They lost a lot. They really did. Which is a shame. We've got Jose Arisa in as well, for a guard who is another really, really solid player. I think he's underrated. Tony Montal returns at running back. They've got a couple decent running backs come through as well. But Derek Broomfield, the former Raiders defensive end, I like that signing. They've kind of stacked on the defensive end positions with Jai, Mamadou, and Derek, which I like. That's going to be able to keep the rotation fresh. It's going to keep opposition offensive lines guessing. But overall, the lack of Spanish talent, it just hurts. And some of the alignment with some of the European signings, I'm not too gassed about, to put it mildly. I'm not too sure about the direction that they're going in. Guards in exit 15, it was quite documented last season that they had quite a few issues getting players in and coaches in, and it kind of delayed the process of the guards in their first season. But they did have some success over the course of the year. And this year, I'm actually expecting them to take a little bit of a step up. I don't think it'll be insane, but there's not a lot of Swiss players that go into different teams, which is an issue that teams like Milan have that we'll get to in a minute. So they do retain a lot of their talent. As I mentioned here, Dominic Leitchi, Bury, Big Mike, his name is Tim Haney, John Falk, Niels Jonkman, all return, which is huge for this team. They need those guys, especially someone like Niels, a reliable kicker, super underrated. And reliable kickers in Europe, despite what everyone thinks, are not great sometimes. Carlton Aiken is going to lead the team. I do like Carlton Aiken. He had a little bit of a flash of the Barcelona Dragons last year, but, I'm not really going to judge him massively off that. You can kind of see flashes of his ability, but, it's better to watch his tape from Poland with the CSGO Rebels, because, he came in, he actually knew the playbook. He wasn't just coming into a team that he didn't know. He's mobile, he has a nice touch deep, but his arm velocity-wise is not what I'd call in the top echelon. But he's big, he's powerful, he runs hard, and I think that he will be, hopefully, fingers crossed for the guards, because they had a lot of quarterback issues last year. They had chopping and changing every few minutes, but he could be a starting quarterback, hopefully for the entire season. And what helps him more is he has his receiver from the Rebels. Leonardo is another player I expect to be in the running for Rookie of the Year if they sign an American receiver. I know Leonardo wants him to sign a running back. I've talked to him a few times, but when we actually play together. But I think that they need a receiver so they can get Leo this space, because he has excellent route running. He sits super well in his routes. He has really good intermediate and short game. And I think that he's surprisingly polished for a player that's younger. And I think that he could be a real impact player if they can get him the ball. If he's on an American quarterback, I just have questions on if he can get separation yet. Because he's not a speedster. Like, he's quick, but he's not a speedster. But if they have someone to come in and they could take a little bit of attention away, he could see a lot more production. And that's what I want from him. I want to see him come in. I have him as probably a 400, 500 yard receiver off the bat in his rookie year. And which is high praise, because sometimes some guys come in, they just don't do as well as I would think, and it is a big leap because it's coming up from the Polish league when you're playing against not elite talent, because all the Polish leagues in the Rogue Law, and then you're coming against a former NFL practice squad guy. So it's a big step up. So I'm expecting him to take a dip, but still around 400, 500 yards, which is excellent for his perspective. And then helping out on offense, you got Phileas Pasquale, who is former surge running back, big, powerful, runs like a truck. He's super physical. He's going to hit the yardage. Like, if there's a 1 yard, he's going to hit that 1 yard like this is last. It does have some fumble issues. It's been noted in the past. Last of the surge does have raw power, just needs to keep the ball tight. I think he just kind of bursts through, and he does have excellent ability at that. I would just like to see him maybe keep hold of the ball a little bit better going forward. Timothy Sherman, super underrated, young, former NFL Academy guy. I think that sky's the limit for him. I think he's probably one of the best. No, I'll just scratch that. He is the best Swiss potential player in the last few years, at least the last 4. So I really, really like him. Former NFL Academy alum, played at the Unicorns, won championships, come back to Helvik, and I think that he's in line for a huge, huge, huge season. Big fan of him. Ken Hike Jr. as well, I was a massive fan of last year, one of the most underrated. He really, really helped Beard become that Defensive Player of the Year, because without Hike, then it would have been a different story in my opinion. Hike is great. He has big playability, he's long. He's 6 foot, but he's long. He has limbs. So I think that when he returns, it'd be great for the team to have that veteran leadership. A lot of the defense is actually returning. So that has some sparks. They just need to put more into it. They need to get this offense actually running. They're going to lose Silas, of course, which is huge. And it's going to be really hard to replace him. I don't think they can replace Silas really, but they're going to be able to have more of a diverse offense. Because last year it was just Silas. He had over 50% of their offensive yards. It was just him. So if they have a quarterback, they have a good receiver, they have a starting running back, get an American guy and a receiver as well, and you're much more diverse. The offensive playbook can be tripled. So, guards, they do still fall to 15, but they could see a couple of wins. They're in a slightly weaker conference as well, so we'll get to in a minute. So, I think they could pick up some wins. They just need to sort it out, get a few more players on defense, and keep the offense moving. And number 14, the Milano Seaman. I still hate that name. I still think they should change it. I know I had some blowback from people that said they liked it, but I don't know, man. Super difficult to keep that name and apply to American fan base. But I have been pretty publicly against some of the signings they've made, but then it seems to be a weird thing with Milan where they make great signings and they make some that I'm not too fussed about. But they've kept Gabriel they've kept Marquez Manning, great player. Liked him last year a lot. Plays the ball well in the air, has good hand placement when he's coming in. He just lacks a little bit of high point ability, which could, I would like to see him intercept more balls. And they got Patrick Carr, running back. American running back is a controversial one. I wrote an article about this as well. I don't think they work. Because you have to have 5 offensive linemen for a running back to do well. Whereas you need a quarterback that can hand the ball off effectively. As a receiver, you just need a quarterback. And you do need offensive line as well, but you get what I mean. You need everything to work on offensive line for a running back to be productive. And Milan lost everyone in that offensive line. Lewis Thomas, gone. Thomas Felicia, gone. Hank Hussein, gone. Didn't sign Runko, didn't sign Vergani, didn't sign, I forget the name of him, Adachi. Didn't sign the one that used to play for the Lazio Ducks. They've just lost so many talented offensive linemen. And They have done a good job in these Brazilian players they're bringing in. A lot of them are good. Speaking of which, Gabriel Montagna, D-tackle, affects the run a lot, affects the pass incredibly for a D-tackle. Doesn't have a deep rush move back, but he is someone I would consider an all-star level player, as is Markel, as could be Patrick if they sort out the offensive line. Like, Patrick Carr is a great running back. I just have doubts in the offensive line. Carr, he's physical, good cuts, isn't the speediest, and sometimes some durability and fitness stuff. He's been out of the game for a while, but he could be really, really good. Speaking of high potential players, the receiver core is looking quite good. I'm actually excited about the receiver core from a speed point of view. Tommy Wilson, 4.27, 4.23, incredible, rapid. Everyone knows about Tommy Wilson by now. If you don't know who Tommy Wilson is by now, that you need to study up, because he's legit. And then you got Flores Calderon, last year's Rookie of the Year, retains in Milan. Some people thought he might move, but he's 19 going on 20. He might be 20 now at the time of this recording, but he is just he's great. He's excellent. He's a great deep threat. I would like to see more of his routes develop. Get some shorter stuff in. Let him get the ball in his hands early, because last year he was absolutely just a deep threat, and he did have short plays, and I think that's why they brought in Tommy. But Tommy has his own issues. He's only been playing football for 2 years. He played one season at the Oxford Saints, one season at Dresden Monarchs, and he had great success at both of them, but this is the next step up. Sometimes he can lack a bit of that football awareness that comes with experience, but raw athleticism-wise, pound for pound, one of the best in the league. So I'm expecting that to be a really, really, really big one. Throwing the ball to him, Zach Brockenhurst, I think kind of the word would just be fine. Like, he's good. He's a decent player. He's mobile. He does good on the run, but he doesn't have an elite pocket presence. He doesn't have an elite process, and he doesn't have an elite arm. He's good, but he's not a championship caliber, in my opinion. He's a slightly more mobile, actually not even more. I just think he's a slightly worse Luke Zarcadia. I don't think it's an upgrade, so I'm questionable about this one. Again, he could be really, really good, but I'm just doubtful. And then the big one, defense. Worst defense in the history of the league last year. Awful. Really, really, really bad. No way to sugarcoat it. If you get mad about me for saying that, then they were terrible. They were really, really bad. This year, they've made an unconscious effort to not have all of their Europeans playing on offense, which is really good. They got Zach Blair at linebacker. That should really help them a lot, because tackling was a problem. He doesn't have a tackling problem at all. He's a tackling machine. He's absolutely everywhere. Super aggressive. Captain material player. Michael Abrera from Guelph, also in my city, Bristol. So I know him well. Very good, versatile athlete. Can play a defensive end. Can play an inside linebacker. He's played inside for Florence. He played outside linebacker for Florence. So he is someone that could come in and just be everywhere. So I like that signing a lot. I think that he would be super important. They've got in some of the other guys on defense. Igor last year, Igor Timanovic. They've got, Nefali Rodriguez at the offensive line to booster. They've got Kevin Kay back. They've got Andrea Fantin. They've got one of my favourite players in the league, Battistella, my good friend, Gabby Battistella. So I'm excited for his rookie year in the league. I think he'll be an important one on special teams for him. Just his aggressiveness and his super high motor. Destiny at defensive end, young guy, another one I'm a big fan of. Also, this is going to be a long video, so I'm kind of just skimming through some of them, but Milan, speed, and some inexperience. I think that's the kind of way to sum them up. Next one, Cologne. Weird. Cologne confused me, because they have one of the best potential receivers possibly, could be in ELF, history. He could be that good. Connor Weddington. He's played all over. He's played for the Seals. He played for the Texans as well, I believe. Not 49ers, but he's been everywhere. Fast, athletic, good hands, great in contest. He Stanford alumni. He obviously is smart. He has the ability. I would like to see him maybe create a bit more separation, because he is a great deep threat player, but, would be get better if he could create a little bit more separation to make those deep threat balls a little bit easier for him to catch. But he could be the guy. He is seriously good. A callback, they've gone with Isaiah Weed, who is a former GFL 2 guy, which does have a few question marks around it. There's a lot of callbacks in the GFL 2 last year. Jalen Henderson being the one that got away, I think, this year. He's re-signed with Potsdam, which is great for them, but damn, I wanted to see him in the year left. And if you gave him Weddington, it could have been over. But Isaiah Weed is a mobile guy. I think that he has play extension material, and I do think he's better than some of the other quarterbacks in this league. He can extend it super well, but he's not the fastest in space. He is mobile, but he's not the fastest. Kind of a bit of an awkward drop back, and I have questions on his 4.58 maybe. I think it might be maybe a little bit generous. Maybe I'm being harsh, but I would like to see him kind of hit that second gear. Maybe it's the acceleration, but it's Ross Henderson as well. I'd like to see speed up a little bit. Speaking of his offensive line, Fabian Kratz returns. A super underrated Fabian Kratz. I think he's legit. His strength is a little bit doubtful, but he's quick. He has tight elbows. He has fast steps. I think that keeping him, I know Paris signed him last season for a week, and then something happened, and he ended up going with Cologne. But he was one of the bright sparks in that team. Speaking of bright sparks, Daniel Leoma, Finnish tight end, coming out of Eastern Illinois. Didn't have a crazy amount of production, but does have good hands and good hand positioning, especially on blocking. But not the fastest, not the biggest, not the strongest. So he's either going to be good, really, really good, or he just kind of will be a bit of a role player. He's kind of similar to Stephen McCluskey size-wise, so, I think those two will probably be around the same kind of range. Victor Newman, offensive tackle, Brilliant Rebels, young, 21, big, 6'4", 320, huge. Black visor as well, looks super cool. Is space moving, he can move in space, but I wouldn't say he's a reliable player in space. Poor pad level, does hit for, leads with the head quite a lot, which is going to affect his vision if they are going to use him out on the boundary. And then they've got Lance Yoder, former ELF All-Star. I kind of have a bit of a weird feeling about some of these older guys coming back. Not older guys, maybe a bit harsh. Some of the guys coming in from 2021 and then going back in 2024. The league is so different from 2021 All-Stars to now. So, can he step up? I'm not sure. A lot of these lower teams, you're going to see how I would build a team, because I've got all the teams of lower powers as D tackles of E players. Or, he's New Zealand, but he counts in E. Gerald Alman's back at running back as well. Tommy Kleinman at safety, I think, is a really solid young player. He's huge. He's 6'3", 200 safety killer. Gerald Alman, another one of those players, is he is young, super young. He's an ELF rookie, but he was an all-star in 2021, has had decline in production over the last few seasons, but I think that has a lot to do with offensive line, and last season they weren't great, so, it's mixed. They've got Sven Alpenpolz as well, returns to linebacker. The surprise one was Lucky. I really didn't think they'd get Lucky or Boveren. That was a big surprise. He's he's one of the best linebackers in the league as a European, and for them to get him was just a bit confusing. But it's a great signing. So that single-handedly probably moved him up against Milan. So, they still have a lot of signs to make. They haven't actually announced a crazy amount, but the ones they have, some of them are decent. I think they're really close with Milan. I think those two could honestly be interchanged quite easily. Next one up, Madrid. I said Madrid are going to go 0-12 at the start of the year, and I think I'm wrong about that. I saw their conference, and it looked like if you remember seeing that first time, that conference was incredible. The first time it came out, I was like, what the fuck are their league plan here? First of all, they're not in the conference of the Dragons, and I know they want to make an El Clasico, but they also want it in different conferences, so if any of them make the playoffs, if they both make the playoffs, it makes more sense for them to play in the playoffs. So they're doing it for natural reasons, and they still get those 2 games between the 2 teams. So, it's a strategy. And then Madrid, though, speaking more about their roster, they could just sign Chris Helbing. Obviously, I put and it was is rumored that is now true. Signed yesterday, which he mentioned me about, which I thought was quite funny. So I appreciate it, Chris. He kind of let me know. He's like, how did you find this out? I was like, I know things. So Alessandro Fernandez is the big one. He was the first signing for them. Like, that really broke the ELF. He is a Madrid kid. He has great burst, nice bend, active hands. He's Alessandro Fernandez. He's well known. Dwayne Obi, a running back, British running back. Really big fan of him. I really wanted him to be in the ELF last season, and he wasn't. But he's here now, so now we get to see what he can do. He's a third down back. He's big. He's bulky. He's like 240 at running back. He can just run through people. His blocking's good. He's athletic and hurt. Remember that hurdle in Milan? Insane. Connor Bolton, I said earlier, I think he's super underrated. I think he's honestly one of the better offensive linemen from Britain. He played at the Thunder 2 years ago. Played in the Inthrotters this year. Wasn't great team-wise, but he was a player that stood out a little bit more. He dips his head as well. Hand position isn't great, but he's just fast, aggressive, and plays. He's a mauler. Plays angry. Safety and corner, Kevin Fortes. Another player that I kind of thought was surprising. I think he's really good. I just didn't think they'd land him. I thought he would go to France. He's long, he's rangy, he's a big safety. He's another former all-star. Coverage-wise, he isn't elite. He doesn't have that elite speed and burst, but he is big, he's bounced, he's physical. So I think if they get him to come down into the box, it's like a box safety. Like Cam Chancellor, he's not Cam Chancellor, of course, no one is, but he could be that role. Continue on defense at safety, you got Luke Glenner. So it's kind of a weird one. I'm assuming they're going to play Fortes at 3, or just play, fuck it, now 2 strong safeties, because Luke Glenner, former Defensive Player of the Year nominee at Barcelona, awkward, but he is a box safety. He isn't an elite cover guy. You saw a lot of times, a lot of the criticism was when he comes down into the slot, he can get burned. So I think they have him come deeper, and then they kind of keep Fortes somewhere. I don't think Fortes is a hash to hash, so I'm really curious how that one's going to work. And then you got Pablo Arrea, who's more of a nickel. So they're not going to play either of those at nickel because Pablo's a nickel. So I do want to see how it shapes out. It's kind of an awkward one. Diego Rivero, another solid player. They've got just so many former Dragons that have come in. They got Jaden Embry at corner, which I really liked. Former Raider. I think that he's going to be an underrated player, adds leadership, adds veteran ability. Andy Vera returns to the ELF, another former 21 All-Star. He's small, but he's a pit bull, so he's going to go after people. Then they got Leo Rostetti. They've got just guys all over. On offense, the main one is Helbing, a quarterback, but then you got Willie Patterson. Came in late for Robitaille last season for the Fire and just lit up the league. Was so fast, so quick, disgustingly fast. He's probably one of the fastest in the league. Lacks the inside routes, and I would like to see him a little bit more intermediate, because at the moment he's a speedy deep threat, but he's not a huge speedy deep threat. I forgot to mention Janelle Penley as well, another former ELF player. Was at the Unicorns last season. Smaller linebacker, but darty, quick, angry, aggressive, tackling machine. So he's going to be... There's a lot of players that kind of fit into this box, and I want to know how they do it, because Penny's an outside linebacker, and you've got Glenner, who's an outside linebacker safety. You got Kevin, who's kind of like a box safety. You got Pablo, who's a nickel. So maybe they just say fuck it and don't play deep, and they can just let these corners go man coverage, get Jay and Embry on man coverage, and then try and sign another lockdown corner. And then you got Andy Vera as well, who is kind of, I think he's probably a better nickel because he is smaller, but can play on the outside, more than capable about it. So I do want to see how that defense kind of shapes out. Helbing's also got Mario Flores as well, another underrated player that I think is really good. Raul Soneda as well, big blocking guy. He's not a receiver threat. He's very slow, but he can hit someone. Offensive linemen as well. They've kind of snagged a lot of the Spanish guys, mainly Celestian and Ngami. I think he's probably the biggest one at Paris last season. Kind of saw some criticism because he wasn't as good as he could be, and I think that now that he's in Madrid, I think he'll take a step up. And yeah, they've got Robin French as well, which for an E player, he is a former All-Star as well. So they're kind of loading up with the offensive line. They've committed to it. They've got a lot of former Barcelona Dragon players. So there's going to be kind of that rivalry there. And they've got a lot of speed and they've got a lot of offensive firepower. So Madrid just keep going up. They just keep going up. They got their quarterback in now as well. So overall, they are looking very, very nice. That's overall. That is 1 to 17 to 12. Don't have 11 yet. Someone else has 11, but that'll be on the next one. For all of the players that we have. And good. Again, if you want access to this chart, my Ko-fi, it's going to be linked in the description. Just to give you an idea of what we're playing with. So that's just these few signings. Of course, there's a lot of signings that we still haven't gone through because they haven't been announced. So it takes a while. It's an interesting preseason, but I'm going to try and do more of these, just kind of react to some articles and stuff and giving a kind of idea of where we sit. But if you enjoyed it, much appreciated. I will see you for the next one.